Hello guys and welcome to AS&MT Investigates. This is the first episode. So this is a new channel where I investigate all true crime cases, unsolved and unsolved. So yeah, today's episode is the first and it is on a pretty good case, the case of Brandon Swanson. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and leave a like, and let me know in the comments below what questions you have about the case, and also if you enjoyed the video. Without further ado, let's get into the case. So here's a little about Brandon Swanson. So Brandon Swanson was a 19-year-old college freshman. He was he was born, I believe, in 1989, which would line up to his age in 2008 when this case takes place. He was a Marshall, Minnesota citizen, or I guess you can say native. He went to Minnesota West Tech to study wind turbines. And it seemed like he wanted to be an engineer, but he did study turbines. He took a very special interest in wind turbines. He was described as a very nice, respectful, and good person, and he had a really good family that supported him. He was a really, really good kid. He wasn't involved with drugs or mental illness before this either. So what it seems like from this is, again, that, he was a really good kid, he was a nice person, he was a person you want to be around, and he had a family that really, really loved him. Let's go to May 13th, 2008. Technically, Brandon would disappear on the 14th, but 13th is kind of where the story begins and the whole narrative here. So, all classes on the 13th are canceled because it is the end of the college school year, Brandon attends 2 college parties that night. It's not clear what he did before he attended these parties, like throughout the afternoon, but all classes were canceled, so he probably was just chilling at wherever he was, either in a dorm. It's not really clear where he was, but wherever he lived, he was probably just chilling there until the party. So, he attends 2 parties, and testimonies would say that the first party, they say at the first party he went, I think he was at from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And at the second party, he went from 10 to midnight. Brandon at these parties was described in 2 different ways from a lot of testimonies. At one of the parties, or at both, he was said either to be, taking shots, drinking, partying hard, being outrageous and crazy, like, how you usually are at parties. And then some people and his friends, this is the testimony I believe more, they said he was really social and drinking very lightly. But he was drinking still. Just remember, he was drinking. So it does not, neither of these are disregarding the fact that he was drinking at these parties, but one is saying that he was drinking a lot, and one was saying he isn't. I'm believing the one from his friends more that personally knew him, that said he wasn't drinking, he was just very casual and just being very social. Anyway, so he was drinking to the point where he was sober. Now, the parties were in Canby, Minnesota. Almost sounds like I'm saying candy. I don't know why, but I thought it first said candy. It's Canby. So if it sounds like I'm saying that, it's Canby. Canby. Not DBY. So Canby, Minnesota. So Canby is 30 miles away from Marshall, where Brandon lives. This is his hometown. And now we're going, and he leaves the party around midnight. So Brandon leaves around 12 a.m. on May 14th, and this is where the actual day, the night of his disappearance, the morning of Brandon's disappearance is this night. So basically, there was a 2-hour gap from when he left the party, when he was reported to be left the party, to when he calls his parents. Now, many have assumed he could have maybe, he called a couple friends, which is what phone records will show later, and also the fact that he could have tried to pull out his car, he could have tried done some things, he could have made a couple pit stops. But the fact that there was a 2-hour window from when he from when he leaves the party to when he reports to his parents. He calls his parents and tells his parents that he crashed into a ditch on a back road. There's a 2-hour gap, so just keep that in mind that there was a 2-hour gap between those two big events. So, Brandon, now just to say that Brandon did take a back road for some reason home to Marshall. He didn't usually take back roads, but he did take a back road on this trip back to Marshall's hometown. Marshall has a lot of back roads that lead to other parts of Minnesota, so he took a back road home to Marshall because Marshall has a lot of back roads that lead to the town itself. So yeah, back roads, if you guys don't know what those are, they are rural gravel roads in the middle of the woods that aren't lit and are mainly they're mainly isolated and very not populated. Like they're very isolated and not very populated, and they're very rural. So, yeah. Now we can say Brandon maybe went on a back road to maybe avoid, getting the cops' attention or just being like in any cop zone because he was drinking, he was underage. It's very realistic. There could have been any reason for him to take a back road, but they just found it strange that he never really did this on a trip before. And he's made this trip a million times, it's said by his parents, from college to home, so the trip didn't seem that different. A little before 2 a.m., Brandon calls his parents, Annette and Brandon Swanson, because he crashed his car in a ditch, and he wants them to help, to go pick him up because he's in the middle of nowhere in this back road. So the phone, later shows that he, again, like I said before, tried to call his friends before his parents, and, Brandon's parents agreed to pick him up, and they will go there to pick him up to his, car. Brandon's parents want him to stay on the phone so we can give him directions, since he's on this rural back road. His parents need to know, where to go so they can find him. Brandon tells them that he's in Lind, Minnesota, or the back roads in Lind, Minnesota. He tells them that he has his headlights on, they're flashing, and to look out for them. Lind is full of mostly farming land and back roads, if you don't know about Lind, Minnesota. The call drops a few times since they're in a rural part of the woods, but they land on the final call, which spans for the full 47 minutes. Brandon then gives them directions to where exactly he is on these back roads. Brandon's parents arrive to where Brandon says he is. I think a little after 2 a.m. I'm not totally certain on when the parents arrive. They do arrive. Because again, I don't think they live too far away from where Brandon says he currently is, but it is still a drive. So I think they arrived at like 20-ish, half an hour maybe later. Brandon's parents don't see him anywhere though. Brandon tells his parents that he can see light in the distance, which he thinks are their headlights. So Brandon gets out of his car after some resistance from his parents, of course, because you wouldn't want your kid going out of your car in the middle of the night. But he resists, he insists, he says, I can see your headlights, so he walks toward the light that he sees. His parents tell him they can't see him. Brandon continues to walk to the light. He's walking through fields, he's walking through water streams, fences. He says he's passed water, he says he passed fences, and then 47 minutes into the call, while talking to his dad, he interrupts himself mid-conversation, and while his dad's on the phone, and he says the final words, "Oh shit." Everything goes silent on Brandon's end of the phone. The phone doesn't drop, and it doesn't drop for another minute according to his parents. His parents call out to him, there's no answer. His parents like, Brandon, hello? Again, no answer on his end. His parents don't panic at first, and after about a minute, like I said, the phone does then drop. But I think 60 seconds, they said, a minute. Anyway, his parents don't panic at first. They think that the call might have disconnected or died, because remember, this is 2008, they had flip phones. They didn't have the iPhone, so, phones the battery can easily die, or, they could easily just, get disconnected, because again, they had bad reception. They already got disconnected before, so they didn't panic at first. But as the hours tick by and they're frantically driving all over the back roads, they're starting to panic as they can't find him, and his phone is going to voicemail. The phone was still on at this time, still working, His parents then go to the police, or they call the Lind police to report Brandon missing. So now, the police don't at first, so they didn't think that he should be marked as missing since he's an adult, and you can be missing. I didn't know this totally until now. I have to look it up. You can be missing if you're 18 or older. You can be missing for 24 hours. Because you're an adult, you have the right to be missing for at least a day. And the police were trying to chalk it up to a multiple plethora of reasons. His parents press on though, especially his mother, and said that he should be marked missing. He hung up the call for really abrupt. He said some very chilling words. He said he saw us we have to mark him missing. And then so he's officially marked missing at 6:30 a.m. on May 14th, 2008. And then so later that morning, the police search and they conduct the back roads of Lind, where they don't find anything, and they do an emergency trace of Brandon's phone, and they find that he made his last call, according to the phone company, with the help of the phone company as well, 25 miles away from Lind to State Highway 68 near those back roads. He was nowhere near where he said he was to his parents. He was on Highway 68. In I think Lind, or I think a town called Lincoln, Minnesota, if I said that right. Then the police then went to where the phone tracked, and they went to Highway 60, State Highway 68, to those back roads because that's where the phone traced. What's also weird about this though was that because he was on State Highway 68 near those back roads, and it was way past Lind. What's even weirder is that Lind was actually past Marshall, his hometown. So he essentially went 30 minutes out of his way to back roads that weren't even going to lead him to Marshall. So he really did not know. Brandon Swanson really wasn't anywhere where he said he was on that night. Now the crime scene this is what the crime scene looked like. So they arrived, they found Brandon's Chevy Luma, and that's where his scent started, and we'll get back to where the scent led in a second. And this is what his car looked like according to reports. So his car, inside the car, all of his wheels, by the way, were on the ground. So the car was mobile. It was not immobile, it was mobile, which means it was able to be driven. So he said he went into a ditch, but there was no reason to assume that the car couldn't drive, despite being, because there was some slight damage apparently according to reports, but it wasn't to the point where the car couldn't have been driven. Inside the car, they found Brandon's glasses, which was weird because he wore glasses, a pipe, and his wallet. Not his phone, because he had his phone on him. And the last thing about the car, another detail, was all 4 doors of the car were open. That is weird, right? Finally, around the crime scene ahead, they saw an old pole with a red light that was used for on farms for light ways. And they said that could have been what Brandon saw. It was knocked over, it was broken, but it was a red light distant away from the car that was on a farm. They said that could have been what Brandon saw that night. We don't really know, but yeah. So his scent went from his car. There was a path. It went there was a trace of it, but yeah, it went through a path. It was on the path. It was on the back roads. It then went through fields, past fences, past water streams like Brandon described. Then led all the way up to the Yellow Medicine River. It went through the river, onto another back road, and then into a field, a farm, and then that's where his scent completely cuts off. Despite bringing in, cadaver dogs, they brought in, aerial searches and stuff, and they also brought in dive teams to dive for a body. 15 years later, Brandon's body was never found, and he remains missing to this day, and his phone was never found as well. That is all we know on the Brandon Swanson case. He remains missing to this day as of 2023. A body nor remains have not been found. His phone was never found. Anything else to insinuate where he is right now has never been found. his parents, Annette and Brian Swanson, they did many interviews talking about him, and they even leave their porch light on, hoping he just would come home to them. It's so sad, especially when you know that he came from a family that really, really loved him. So yeah, he remains missing to this day, and his parents had gone on a lot of interviews to talk about him and how a bunch of other details as well. So if you want to find out more, like all these other little individual details, and I'll read up on and what Brandon Swanson looks like, you can look it up all online. It's all there. So that is it from the Brandon Swanson case. Let me know if you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully it was informative, and hopefully, I do still hope that Brandon Swanson is out there somewhere, even though he's been gone for 15 years. We don't really know where he is. I mean, there's not been a body, so we don't really, he hasn't been confirmed dead. He could be out there, but I don't want to speculate, because we will do speculation in a part 2 to Brandon Swanson if this video gets enough attention. If you guys want it, we can do a part 2 to Brandon Swanson where we talk about the theories and just my personal theory, but not, but we're not going to take it that, like, to the point where we're going to be blaming people. We don't do that on this channel here, guys. I'm telling you guys facts. It's facts, because we're not going to speculate to the point where it gets ridiculous, because then it's getting disrespectful, and we don't want to do that. So yeah, we'll be doing a part 2 to this video, though, if this video gets enough, if I get enough, if I get encouraged by you guys. So yeah, thank you guys again so much for watching. Subscribe to AS&MT Investigates, and let me know in the comments below what your theories are about this case and what you guys enjoyed about the video. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.